Hey everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. Matt, Christy, Alonso back with another week's worth of exciting updates in the world of show business during a pandemic. You all have sent us tons more marquees. Christy has a ton of news. But yeah, let's start taking a look. Matt is going to share screens with us, and we're going to look at how closed theaters, shuttered theaters around the globe have been posting signs about what we're in right now, what we're doing.
Right. So this is, I haven't showed you guys this till just now. This is what we opened the clip with. This is the Lake Theater and Cafe in Oswego, Oregon. And as you can see, they've been watching movies at home and cooking meals at home since March 16th, 2020. Wow. Right?
It has been that long, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. We're going to be in June soon. It's crazy to think about that, but it has indeed been like almost 3 months at this point.
Yeah, I started March 6th, and I looked it up. My last haircut was Valentine's Day.
Are you boys not like cutting one another's hair?
Well, Dave can shave his head, so he shaves his head, and I cannot do that. I tried it once in 2000, that it was not pretty. So I'm just shagging out.
So it's not that you cannot; it's that you must not.
I shall not. I will not, and I dare not.
I've cut my husband's hair twice now, and we are still married.
Nice. Well played.
Well, it's not like he can go out and date. I mean.
Here's the thing. I
have scissors in my hand, so I'm dangerous.
I did a thing yesterday for TCM, which I'm very excited about. It's coming up in June, and I producted the shit out of my head, and it actually looked okay. But today you're getting
your hair's in good shape now.
At full floof.
Yeah, that's okay. You kind of have the Superman curl happening.
A little bit, yeah. I'm a mess of cowlicks the longer it gets. So there you go.
Nice.
Well, thank you.
All right. So our next, so this one, I'm putting this picture up. This isn't so much a marquee, but so much a picture of the Berliner Ensemble Theater in Berlin. And this is a picture of how the social distancing of theaters may look.
So here's a really dumb question. So you guys who are listening on the podcast can't see it, but it's like a bunch of seats spaced out. Some are single, some are two together if you want to canoodle on a date. But like, are they just physically unscrewing individual seats from the floor, it looks like?
So in this picture, you can see that they've done that. They first of all removed every other row.
Right.
And then they've taken out one or two, like at least two seats between every seat. In this particular picture, you can see that there are far less singles together than there are doubles together, as if to say, we don't expect anyone to come by themselves.
Well, they don't know us.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's, I would say like there are an almost equivalent amount, like, like any row you look at, you'll see like maybe, 3 or 4 pair and then at least 1 or 2 singles. So they're not completely, screwing over the sole moviegoer. But yeah, I think the idea is that like couples who can still go out in public, who've been quarantining together can go out in public together and they'll want to sit together.
But if you want to cry by yourself, you can do that too.
Absolutely.
I mean, but you can do that at the comfort of your own home, right? Okay, so
I do.
Right? All right, so here's our next picture. This was sent to us by Cody Quinn. This is the Highland Cinema in
London,
Ontario, and I'll zoom in a little bit on that. It says Indiana Jones and the Temple of Zoom, now showing.
And I looked up the Highland Cinema at highlandcinema.com, and they're doing what a lot of cool indie theaters are doing, in that they're showing stuff, for pay-per-view. So if you want to see The Trip to Greece, you can order it through highlandcinema.com and they get a piece of that action. Nice. They also do popcorn sales. So if you're in Canada and you want popcorn, this is the place to go.
This is the place to go. Okay. Next up, this is the Enzian Theater in Maitland, Florida, and I'll zoom in on this one a little bit too. You can see there's no place like home. It says on that theater. That's from Terry East, who is in Florida, because he also sent us this picture of the Tampa Theater, which is in Tampa. And the picture, it was not huge, but it says, to all the essential workers keeping us safe, healthy, and fed, thank you.
And there's like a badge and a red cross and a little fork and spoon and a heart.
It's a pretty old building, it looks like. Pretty old marquee.
Yeah. it is. It's a beautiful kind of old school Art Deco looking marquee there. Okay, next up is, all right, so this one, Dennis Litton sent us this and a few pictures of going to the drive-thru, and these were the rules. Sorry, the drive-in.
But you can drive through it also, Alonso, and go out the other side.
Sorry, I was thinking of the drive-through strip club. Sorry.
All right.
Which we don't have pictures of for you.
No. Which we don't. They wouldn't let us take pictures. But you know,
we tried. Trust me.
We tried. Okay, so this sign. This is from the West Wind, which is in Concord, California, right?
In the East Bay.
On the East Bay, this drive-in is open under strict operating rules. 1, people must stay in their cars at all times except to visit the restroom. 2, you may not park your vehicle within 10 feet of another vehicle, which is smart. 3, only one person in the restroom at a time except an adult with a child, with their child. And 4, please place your trash in a can that is provided for you. 5, customers who do not follow these rules will be asked to leave. And I assume if they won't leave, and I have to assume if they won't leave, they get towed away. Maybe?
That all sounds fair. It sounds fair under ordinary circumstances. All these rules sound fair.
Yeah, and it's weird. They're not mentioning the concession stand, which I know that, like, for example, the Mission Tiki, they do have a sort of contactless concession thing set up. I haven't seen the details on how that counter works, but you can still get, like, you know, popcorn and candy and soda and whatnot.
Yeah, this seems like they don't mention I mean, I would have to imagine if they're saying you're staying inside your car at all times and they don't have concessions up and running.
Or they maybe set up some sort of, like, after you drive in and get your ticket, maybe there's another booth where you could purchase that stuff.
Right.
To keep you in your car.
The drive-through, right?
The drive-through at the drive-through.
I told you I was right. A drive-through.
Forgive me.
All right. So next up, now I'm too zoomed in. Okay, so this was a picture, this is from the Detroit Free Press, and a couple of folks sent in this picture, so I want to make sure I give credit to both of them. This was sent in on Twitter by Beast Out and 313 on Tech. This was, again, a Detroit Free Press story about how the Traverse City Film Festival apparently is still going on.
Traverse, I think.
Traverse. Sorry. The Traverse at the State Theater, which people are a little concerned about coming too soon, as we can see, The Tourist. It seems a dodgy question to have a film festival happening until things are a little bit clearer. But
I also see no masks on anybody in this picture. There are pedestrians walking on the sidewalk past the theater marquee, and there's nobody wearing a mask.
Although I'll tell you, if the State Theater is where that film festival takes place, that is a flex to, like, protest it on your own marquee,
right?
Yeah, well, maybe they're doing it online. Maybe who knows? Who knows?
That's a gorgeous theater, by the way. I've never been, but just the facade is great.
Yeah, that is. I love the sign too. That's a very kind of jet age sign. All right, so next up, so this was sent in by the Central Cinema. Daniel Peters pointed this out from the Central Cinema. This is not a marquee per se so much as it's a picture of the late, great Dennis Hopper from the movie The Unforgettable Film. It makes me want to have a mask. Right, Blue Velvet. So the first picture is Dennis Hopper without the mask with the red slash and circle through it. And then you see him with his, is it nitrous that he keeps taking in the movie?
Yeah.
They never say. Yeah. Maybe it's oxygen. We don't know.
Yeah, I think it maybe is nitrous oxide, but who knows? Anyway, he's wearing the breathing mask. So, yes, and he's very angry.
Heineken, fuck that shit. Pass blue ribbon.
Wear a mask is the real message.
Yes. So, Daniel, thank you for sending that. All right. So next up, this was sent in by Daniel Simoner, who sent us in a few pictures from New York previously. They don't show a lot of movies at Radio City Music Hall, but they did put up a congratulations class of 2020 sign, which was very nice.
They used to, actually. You hear about movies having big premieres there and stuff.
All right. Yeah. And his note, Daniel's note was just one small local marquee this week.
Cute.
All right. So this next picture is from Twitter user L. Holgern. This is Regal Northwoods This is the Regal Northwoods Theater in San Antonio. And the marquee says, our theater is empty, but our hearts are full. For our frontline heroes, our team, our community, and our 2020 graduates, thanks for staying safe.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's very nice. All right, so next we have a couple of pictures from Erwin Tischler, a fan in Amsterdam. This one, he says, I mean, you could read a little bit of it. Good news is presumably good news. But he's translated a little bit. He says the first picture basically says that in the Netherlands, the theaters will open up on June 1st with a maximum of 30 people in attendance per movie. You must reserve tickets in advance. And then he sent us another picture, and I'm going to have to zoom in on this one. I'm a little concerned about how brown that water is. Because we're seeing this canal in Amsterdam, but I'll zoom in on this.
Well, canals aren't known for being crystal blue, you know.
Yes, and these people in the boat, no masks.
No masks.
No masks.
But they're not near anyone, so, you know.
Well, they're near each other.
That's true.
Yeah.
They're in the same boat.
Right. So the Kelly Gang was the true story of the Kelly Gang was showing in that theater. Again, this is the Lookout Theater that Erwin tells us about, and the same gist. They're going to be opening on June 1st, and presumably the same rules.
Which is in a few days.
Yeah, Monday.
I'd be very curious to hear how that goes. Erwin, follow up with us and let us know if you go to the movies on Monday and how it looks.
Yeah. So as people have undoubtedly heard about unrest all over the U.S., especially in Minneapolis, we have some pictures from the Parkland Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They tell us this was earlier in the week. No jokes today. The other side, justice for George Floyd.
We've shown this theater before, right?
We have. We showed this theater last week. As we know, George Floyd was killed by a police officer. In broad
daylight in the middle of the street.
In broad daylight. Pretty much straight up murdered.
Yep, on camera.
This is the Parkway Theater. Parkway Theater is what it's called.
Right. And it's in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad this place is still standing because, as we saw from the news last night, there was a lot of rioting, torching of buildings. So please don't trash your movie theaters. Please, hang on to this theater.
Yeah, Target and AutoZone. They've got better insurance, I'm sure.
So this one, a call for peace, all quiet on the western side of Chicago Avenue. So yeah, this is another view of the Parkway on a different day. And then, the first two pictures were from Pablo Aguilera. Jeff Swanson sent in this one. And then he also sent this picture of the Granada Theater, which is near the Uptown Theater, which we've also featured. And they are calling for justice for George Floyd, which is, I think, a sentiment that we can all agree on.
Absolutely. They're also boarding up the windows in this picture, you can tell.
Right. And, admittedly, ending the pictures this week on somewhat of a serious note, but it's an important issue, and I think we all agree that's where we are.
The world in which we live. Yes, we were watching coverage last night, and it is horrifying and it is heartbreaking. There were protests in Los Angeles as well. People were storming the freeways here. And in Denver and in New York as well. And I just don't see it getting any better anytime soon when our president is tweeting things like, when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Yeah, which isn't even originally stolen from an old racist in the 1960s.
Right. Get your own racist slogans. Right. You know what? I bet Stephen Miller told him, dude, tweet out when the looting starts, the shooting starts. People are going to love it. And Trump had no idea where.
Which comes from that asshole in Florida.
Miami.
Right, Miami,
yeah. Somebody said, for a guy who doesn't know who Frederick Douglass was, he can sure quote a racist at the drop of a hat.
Yes. So hopefully.
That's no accident. Come on.
No, heavens no.
Yes.
They're not even dog whistles. They're dog screams.
No. And also Trump is, Twitter is now kind of muting Trump, kind of tagging or flagging his tweets as like, oh, they're not truthful. But they leave them up because they're newsworthy.
Exactly, and that's what merits a presidential, an executive order these days, being censored on Twitter.
Yes. Let's talk about other news, shall we?
Yes.
So the big news this week is that HBO Max finally launched.
Yes.
Did either of you guys check out HBO Max this week?
I thumbed through a bit of it. I wasn't planning to subscribe, but it turns out since I'm an old fart who still pays for cable, I get it for free, included with paying for HBO. So, I haven't watched any of the original stuff yet. I saw one of the, or at least a part of one of the new Looney Tunes shorts online. And I was like, oh, this is actually funny and good, and I want to see more of these. I thumbed through the TCM section, which is a weird mix of, like why is Commando in there? I guess
that's a classic.
The 80s is now classic, apparently, according to this section. And they've got some good stuff. I, of course, have a very much miss Filmstruck as somebody who worked for them, but also I think that mix of TCM stuff and Criterion Channel stuff was pretty great. The Adult Swim, like there's great. They have Space Ghost and they have Aqua Teen, but they don't have like the Brack Show or Venture Brothers or.
Do they have Cartoon Planet?
I don't know if they have Cartoon Planet, but they don't have.
Because that was the other Space Ghost show, right? It was Space Ghost Coast to Coast, but then there were rights issues.
Yeah, I don't think they have Cartoon Planet, and they don't have C-Lab 2021, which I was.
That was an amazing show.
But it could pop up eventually. Certainly, like Disney Plus, there's still corners of the vault they haven't been through yet. But
I had read.
I don't know.
Sorry, Alonso. I had read,
Sure.
and I'm jumping in because maybe you checked this out. I had read that they have every Looney Tune cartoon.
I've heard they don't. Actually, there's already been. Believe me, there's people on Twitter who looked for every single one of them, and they're already telling you which ones aren't there. But they have a whole lot of them, which is great. And I definitely recommend a deep dive into those.
I'm guessing things like maybe Coal Black and the Seven Dwarves are not.
Probably
included.
not. Yeah, I'm thinking not. But yeah, so it's hard to say with these services. I mean, obviously, like they're if you have to stream Friends, this is where you're doing it now, and they just announced that that's where young Sheldon will be streaming. So
does anyone have to stream Friends?
They're clearly looking at the Netflix model of like. Some new material, lots of movies, lots of bingeable series. So I guess we'll just sort of see what they wind up bringing to the table that's new. I would love it if, say, the TCM section had, if they don't go out and hire new intros like Filmstruck did, then they should at least have like Ben and Dave and Alicia and Eddie doing, their thing. So I don't know.
Ben's going to maybe join us here in a little bit, so we can ask him that very question.
Oh, good. Yes, let's.
Yeah. We should mention that Ben might come at some point because we're going to talk about California Split.
Yes.
And since it's about degenerate gamblers, we couldn't imagine discussing it without Ben, and so he's going to be here. Okay, what else do I want to tell you guys? There is so much to say. J.K. Rowling has published a new story online. It's called The Ichabog. It is free online, a couple of chapters here and there every week. It is more of a fairy tale. She wrote it over a decade ago, but she wanted to give families something new to read together. Kids are sending in to her on Twitter pictures they've drawn of characters in the Ichabog, so that's nice. Adam Tickets had this poll about movie-going interest that Matt, you sent me a thing about.
Yes.
Did you read it?
You want me to talk about it?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, they basically were saying that, a bunch of moviegoers are ready to go back to the theaters. I mean, it's coming from Adam Tickets, so take that with a grain of salt. I mean, we all know pretty much that people are used to. I mean, you can manipulate answers in a poll. I should have read up on the article.
All right, so I put you on the spot. We'll move on.
Yeah,
let foxes and hen houses.
But it was basically, sorry, I'm looking for it right now. But basically, it was something like people are ready to go back to theaters within a month of theaters being reopened and quarantines being lifted.
But no discussion about what would require to get us to that point, right?
No, it was really more the poll of, hey, look, theaters are going to be back in business.
Would you go to the movies?
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay. The Greek Theater has canceled its entire 2020 season. It's the first time in 90 years that has happened. And of course, the Hollywood Bowl a while ago canceled its whole season. All these things are happening. John Krasinski has sold his Some Good News series to CBS, Viacom. He will still drop in and do some cameos here and there. I see he's getting shit online for this. It's stupid. I mean, what was he going to do? Is he going to do Some Good News for the rest of his life? He's got A Quiet Place 2 to put out. He's got, he's got another season of Jack Ryan to shoot. So he's
he's got other stuff to do, but I don't know. It seems to me like you take this thing that was sort of one person's, like, kind of spontaneous, like this is a thing for right now to make people feel better, and now I'm going to sell it to this conglomerate. It's like, well, that's I don't blame him for doing it. I would not be surprised if people who love what he was doing are not interested in the corporate version of same.
They want to see cute stuff that he and Emily Blunt do in their office.
Sure.
Right. What else is
and have his friends chime in.
Movie called Palm Springs, which premiered at Sundance. This is like a Lonely Island version of Groundhog Day. It is going to be out on Hulu on July 10th, so we'll have to talk about that. But that sold for a record $17.5 million at Sundance. And from all accounts, it's a blast of a movie to see in a crowd. And they are banking on theaters not yet being open. So Hulu is just going to put it out on July 10th, and you can sit on your couch and you can laugh uproariously and wish there were people with you.
All right, wait. I have important. This just in.
What?
That would have been better if he'd actually shown up right now.
Oh, is Ben here?
Yep. He is here.
Oh.
He's coming in.
Dude, we have a caller on the
Ladies and
line.
gentlemen, Ben Mankiewicz.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Ben.
Hello.
Good to see you. How was your Baseball Hall of Fame thing you did?
It was fun. I just finished. It was an hour conversation.
What about?
Baseball movies,
horse racing,
all that stuff. It was, and A's fandom. I mean, it's the Baseball Hall of Fame. They love talking about baseball. Weird.
Are they? So I've seen various stories about what is not going to happen. Can you hear me?
I don't know. Somehow I just lost you guys. Wait a minute. What did
Hello. We can see and hear you.
There we go.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Hooray.
Yeah,
I can totally hear you. Yes. So I'm going to quickly engage you in a conversation that Matt and Alonso aren't going to care about. Did you guys talk about the prospect of a baseball season happening and what shape that might take?
Oddly enough, no, but this is my second Hall of Fame conversation in 5 days. I had one the last, what is today? Friday, I guess in a week. I had one like last Thursday. So that one was not, this one is going to be on their YouTube channel. The last one was just like, hey, Ben, we talk baseball every week. You want to join? And
Cute.
so it was great. And that was
You're like yes.
It was 2 hours. It was fantastic. Wow. I'm sure Alonso and Matt would all loved it. And we did then. There's been so much news since. But I was talking to my, this is not existing, right? This is not going on the air anywhere, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
That's why we do this.
Well, I have
a real thing here.
I have a source, and obviously it's as contentious as you as you would read about and there's so much mistrust between the players union and the commissioner. So, and the question would be: are the owners going to budge it all, or are they comfortable because they're going to lose money anyway? Saying, all right, well, we're not going to have a season. We're not going to. If they think that they're going to lose more money by playing a season where they got to pay the players, but they don't get any revenue from fans coming through, then
what's the upside?
Right. Then what's the upside, except that the damage of not playing is pretty great, especially if these other sports, if basketball comes back and the basketball union completely trusts the commissioner, who they're really letting drive the idea to come back. They split revenue.
And hockey's going to have hockey playoffs. The NHL will begin playoffs where the teams were at the end of the season.
Right. That's probably pretty close to what basketball will do. They'll probably have some little play-in. I don't think they'll bring everybody back. But those are contact sports, and football planning to come back in the fall. If baseball, which is a socially distant game for 90% of it, can't figure this out when they could be the only ones playing also every day, I think there's a huge
They're just
damage.
going to play cricket instead.
That's right. Yeah. So I can't imagine that and the players, like, again, most of these guys, their careers is over at 30. Like, this is missing a year makes a huge difference. So I can't believe they won't work it out. But
hey, Ben, we were
Mookie
just
Betts will never be a Dodger. Mookie Betts will go back to Boston. FYI. Go ahead, Alonso.
I have no idea what any of those words meant. Ben, we were just talking about the new launch of HBO Max this week and the branded TCM section. Is there any plan to have you and Alicia and Dave and Eddie record new stuff, or at least like have like intros that you've done, before for the network carry over there? Has anybody talked about that?
We've never used old intros before, but the precedent has been set on the Watch TCM app where sometimes they do include old intros. So I don't know. I know that obviously everybody at Warner Media is excited about HBO, right, at AT&T. Everybody's excited about this, and a couple people have used to work at TCM or are working at HBO Max, and I imagine clearly it's gonna compete, I think, really effectively with with Netflix and Apple TV and obviously Prime Video and Disney Plus, all these big names out there, and they have great stuff. So we of course want to be involved, and you can't, they have access to TCM, and we're thrilled that they're involving us, and I hope that involvement will expand. Understandably, at least in the launch stages, they wanted to launch, right?
Sure.
And now, as it turns out, really not the time to where you create the studio time to create HBO Max centered intros. But the mere fact that they've got a section for us that we curate, it's exciting. It's good to be a part of it. The business is changing, and I think we would have felt far worse to have been left out, but they never were going to leave us out. If you have a chance to stream Casablanca for people, you should probably stream Casablanca for people.
Ben, we're curious about the placement of Commando in the TCM section. Can you comment on this?
Is that true?
Yes.
It is.
The case? No. Wow. All right,
all of me, like some really odd sort of 80s choices, like, okay, sure, why not? We should mention also, because I'm sure if we don't, people will bring it up in the comments. You can also get almost the entire Studio Ghibli feature library on HBO Max. I think they've got everything but Grave of the Fireflies, so that's pretty amazing.
I have not seen everything, haven't looked yet. And I need to figure out how I'm able to get this for free, because I am, but I haven't made those calls yet. But I've been following on Twitter and everything, or many of the things I read, I think, oh, wow, that's fantastic. Oh, that's so great that all this is suddenly available and at your fingertips. If you're a movie lover, I sort of don't quite see how that can't be part of your streaming profile.
Indeed.
I do want to say maybe now is not really the time to watch Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah, no, it's a bummer under the best of circumstances.
Right?
So, it's a bit.
At least at best, it's like, well, at least I don't have it as bad as those kids.
Yeah.
For those of you listening at home, the reason that Ben sounds so great is because he brought his own lav mic. The rest of us don't have them.
Yes.
So
I guess we could invest in them.
I do this regular show for a online network that you guys are familiar with, and and I use this mic, and they are like, we can't hear you, and I'm like, I don't like, this is a professional microphone, it works for TCM. I don't want to be a jerk. I'm like, you're doing something wrong. I don't know what it is, but you're doing something wrong.
You.
All I did was plug it in, and I see that I'm using it, and how is it? It's too low. I'm like, God. Anyway,
you sound great.
I want to mention real quick, HBO Max, among their many offerings, as well as HBO Go and HBO Now, have a documentary that aired a couple years ago called Larry Kramer in Love and Anger. We lost Larry Kramer this week, who was, a film producer and screenwriter turned playwright and very important activist of the AIDS pandemic. An immeasurable influence on how the gay community rose up to demand better from the government and from Big Pharma and from a lot of other people. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but he existed in an era where anger was necessary. So anyway, we lost him this week. If you haven't seen Larry Kramer in Love and Anger and you have HBO Max, please go watch it. It will clue you in on why he's so important. And he speaks for himself in a very eloquent and interesting way. So even if you are familiar with his life, it's great to hear from him.
Let me just jump in for 1 sec, because I constructed a tweet this week that I didn't send because I felt like it was making it about me and not about Larry Kramer. But I was embarrassed as I read the obits in the LA Times and the New York Times that I didn't know enough about it. And I obviously knew who he was. I guess I mostly knew about the rubbing people the wrong way part, right? Mm-hmm. And so I felt embarrassed by that, because you see how important he is. And it occurred to me, and maybe I stole this line, I hope I didn't, but if I did, credit to whoever said it first, that, not every movement for social change in the country should be led by Larry Kramer, but every one of those movements needs to have someone like Larry Kramer in it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, you got to have somebody prodding leadership, and maybe in leadership, making them recognize the value of demanding it, right, and not settling.
Every Martin needs a Malcolm, basically. You know? That's
right. And he was more at times certainly more early Malcolm than Martin, no question.
There's also a really good interview with Dr. Fauci in Variety, because during the AIDS crisis, Larry Kramer and Dr. Fauci really, really clashed, and then ultimately became really dear friends. And so Dr. Fauci has some lovely remembrances of that relationship and how it evolved. Ben, you've joined us in the middle of news, so we got to finish news real fast, and then we'll do California Split. A couple more things I want to tell you guys about. Scott Derrickson is doing a Labyrinth sequel. For those of you who've been clamoring for a Labyrinth sequel, that exists.
Which I want to jump in and say, he is, in case people didn't catch the news, he's not doing another Doctor Strange movie, and in fact, Sam Raimi is going to be doing the next Doctor Strange.
Right. They announced
I love when people say, like, what's a good Marvel movie? Like, I love the first Doctor Strange. Interesting.
Do we think that Labyrinth without David Bowie works?
It'll be strange. Duncan Jones could direct a new Labyrinth. Okay, what else? June 21st is this big event called United We Sing, the Salute to Essential Workers, a big Grammy event. Among the big name stars, Oprah Winfrey, Brad Pitt, Harry Connick Jr., Queen Latifah, Renee Zellweger. Netflix are they buying the Egyptian? Are they taking over American Cinematheque and they're going to revamp the Egyptian?
I think the idea was they were going to buy the building, and that American Cinematheque would continue to function out of it on a certain number of nights per week, and then Netflix would have it for a certain number of nights per week, and would also use it to sort of offer to do like Academy qualifying runs for their titles. Basically,
those of you who don't live in LA, the Egyptian's a beautiful old theater on Hollywood Boulevard.
It was one of the Grauman's chain. It was like there's Grauman's Chinese, and then just down the street on Hollywood Boulevard on the other side of the street was Grauman's Egyptian. And the American Cinematheque has been in there since like 1999. But I think it's hard for any nonprofit to maintain a brick and mortar presence like that. I'm sure the operating costs.
And it's hard enough for profits to maintain it.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah. So I think this could actually work out well for everybody, where American Cinematheque still has the venue, but they don't have to shoulder the burden of keeping that place open and keeping it maintained, and whatever the property tax even on Hollywood Boulevard is, and so I hope it winds up being a thing where everybody benefits.
Yeah, that's been I thought that had been in the works for some time. Maybe I had inside information. It
was announced a while ago.
Yeah. So that's all the case. And Netflix needed a theater. They need one in New York. They have it, and one out here to do exactly that, to run their sort of show their first run movies to get Oscar qualification. The only downside to what Alonso says, which I think is basically true, is that for other people who would stage events, like Eddie Muller's, Noir City in Los Angeles, dealing with the American Cinematheque was a little easier than dealing with Netflix, not because they're bad guys, just because all of a sudden there's a big corporate hierarchy there. Right. And they're now they're parceling out the days rather than a local group that is more interested in whose first priority is different.
Couple of things with release dates. Edgar Wright has announced that Last Night in Soho he's going to push it to April 23rd of next year. It's not done yet. It's going to star Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie and Diana Rigg.
Ooh.
And then Rod Lurie, I don't know if you guys saw this story, this tweet thread this week. Rod Lurie wants his new film, The Outpost, to open on July 2nd. He has this whole very long, poignant tweet thread about why that is. This is based on a Jake Tapper book. It stars Scott Eastwood. It's based on the true story of a team in Afghanistan, and this tiny team took on the Taliban. It's this incredible story of bravery. But Rod Lurie's son, Hunter Lurie, who a lot of us knew on Twitter, he died very suddenly and very weirdly in his early 20s. And Rod Lurie used the memory of his son as a guiding force in making this film and in editing this film, and July 2nd is the day that his son died. His son was about the age of the young men who were depicted in this film. So it's a very long, poignant thread about this. I mean, still July 2nd sounds optimistic again. We've been talking about opening days in various cities and countries, but that's something that he is hoping for.
He can open in France.
Yeah, I mean, as we keep talking about, I think that is optimistic, and I would worry that does that then change the narrative and the importance of the film that he's trying to do get distracted by? Is it, everybody questioning and discussing, is it too soon? Is this gonna, I mean, it's different with Tenet, right? Tenet it's not a movie with, a message and something to say.
It's a big escapist blockbuster.
Right.
Yeah, I think if Rod Lurie is really committed to that, then he should think very hard about July 2nd, 2021.
Yeah, it's a very nice idea.
Where we are right now, yeah.
And then one last thing, the Boston Marathon has been canceled for the first time ever in the race's 124-year history. It usually happens in mid-April, Patriots Days, like April 15th, somewhere around there. They pushed it to September 14th, hoping to get it done in the fall as fall racing season is gearing up. And now they're just like, we can't imagine a world in which that's possible in mid-September. So
they can't do a makeup like that morning and then run the one like the 2021 in the afternoon.
You know what they're doing? They're saying you can run it remotely. They're saying if you were registered, you can run it. No, I know people who were signed up to do a half marathon who just ran it at home and just did their own 13-mile race just to say they've done it. And I think in a city
you cheated. You didn't run to the dining room.
You can be Rosie Ruiz and nobody will know. It's okay.
Right? Hey, you got driven from your garage to your front door.
You walk through your water stops. It doesn't count. So anyway, that's in a city that, is deeply steeped in history, a place where tradition is everything. They are not doing the Boston Marathon. So
Wow.
that's your news.
I wanted to pick up something you mentioned really quick early on where you were talking about the theater in Canada that you can, stream films via their website and their profit sharing. I would recommend to everybody, if you have not just a local art house that you love that you want to support, but also check out your local sort of film organizations. Because I know, for example, Outfest, you can go to stream like Driveways and Then We Danced and or St. Francis and a whole bunch of other movies. So it's not just theaters that are doing these sort of profit sharing things with the smaller indie companies, but also nonprofit film organizations like Film Society of Lincoln Center and different places like that. So if there's somebody that you go to in a normal year that's local that you want to help support, go to their website and take a look. You might have an opportunity to rent films through them, and then they'll benefit from it.
The South Bay Film Society down here in Torrance, they do that very thing. People who don't want to schlep up to LA for art house films, they show them at the AMC down here in Torrance. So they're also one that will benefit from that.
Cool. So so just, check those out, and I'm sure they'll be very grateful that you do.
Yes. Ben, any more news you want to share?
No. I'm just I'm disappointed to learn that Tenet is not the story of George Tenet, which I've
been waiting for somebody to make that joke.
I mean, I'm not sure that I'm joking. I was like,
wait, Triumph for the Will is not about George Will.
The first thing when you, I mean, I knew that was unlikely because why would they be talking about it this much? So it can't be. But then when you said, sort of, big star blockbuster, I'm like, okay, that's Tenet's probably going to be a small movie, the George Tenet story, right? It's sort of selling out to George W. Bush. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that movie still needs to be made.
It's all you, Ben.
The
all
niche
you.
is waiting to be Filled. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out at BeFastAllDay on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. Tons of TV recaps right now. We're talking about we're going to finish up Mrs. America, which had a great series finale this week. We're talking about The Great, and we're also doing our monthly film that our subscribers pick in honor of the late Lynn Shelton. We're talking about Your Sister's Sister. So check that out. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you all next time. Bye.